today. And I am delighted to welcome back Harmony Slater to the chat. Harmony was on season 2 of the podcast, and this was a very popular episode. Harmony, you were super popular. Everyone couldn't get enough of you. So I'm really, really excited that you're back. Why don't you start by introducing yourself to the people that may not be familiar with you yet?
Sure. Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me back. It's so nice to connect with you. How to introduce myself? Well, I am a health and wellness coach, spiritual wellness and business coach. I have been a certified Ashtanga yoga teacher for 20 years. I am also a spinal energetics practitioner, and I teach both online and offline and hold sessions online and in person and teach yoga, spirituality, mind, body, spirit, soul, integration, energy, awareness, nervous system regulation in retreats and workshops all over the world. How's that?
Wow. Okay, so you do everything, but you can see where Harmony and I intersect in terms of our love for very similar things. And so that is why she's back, because she has so much to offer. But there was one thing in your introduction that I hadn't heard you say before. And I'm wondering, is this something new? I need to know a little bit more about it. You mentioned something about spinal energetics. Is that right?
Yes, yes. I forgot to say breath work and pranayama as well, but we'll just throw that in there in our conversation. But yeah, I since we last connected, I have dove fully into the world of spinal energetics, which is both a physical and an energetic healing modality developed by Dr. Sarah Jane, who's an Australian chiropractor. And it really integrates the principles of Eastern philosophy and energy work, the mind body sort of esoteric energy work that comes from Southeast Asia and Asia, China, traditional Chinese medicine, as well as Buddhism, Hinduism, yoga practices and yoga philosophy, and integrates it with a Western, more scientific chiropractic approach, as well as modern transpersonal psychology. And it's really coming and blending these fields of the East and the West together in a healing modality that is profoundly powerful and amazing. And I love it. So that's what I've been doing for, I guess, the last just over half a year now. I've been really working on integrating some of uh, the yogic practices into people's lives in a way where they can feel a more immediate transformation in a sense, because it's a little bit more direct, and less takes a little bit less time, I think.
I'm fascinated. I don't know much about this. So I'm hoping you're okay if we like kind of focus on this a little bit today during our chat. I want to know all the
Yeah,
things.
for
So
sure.
when you mentioned that it's a little bit more direct. Can you explain like how this modality is different from other energy healing modalities that we've previously talked about or that we're both familiar with, and what drew you to this? I've actually never even heard about this, so I'm totally so curious.
Yeah. So, okay, well, what drew me to it was it's kind of one of those stories of the all kinds of components of the universe directing your path into a place. But I was teaching a retreat in Tenerife, in the Canary Islands, and one of my students who was a past client there told me, "Oh, I'm doing this spinal energetics training course." And I was like, "Okay, great. Enjoy." Like, you know, no, just like not really any. I was curious, but not like super curious or interested. I was just like, "Okay, whatever." And then I kinda connected back in with her and said, "How is it going?" 'Cause I knew she was on the course. And she said, "Oh, it's amazing, it's really profound." She had actually just lost her father, so was having a lot of, grief and moving that through her body and, her body was being really affected. She had really, really a lot of shoulder pain, a lot of arm pain. So during the yoga retreat, we were kind of working with that because it actually came up right around the time that she had lost her father. And she knew that it was kind of connected to this grieving process, but was not able to heal it. It had been about 6 months at this time, maybe 4 months. And it had just kept getting kind of worse and worse and worse. And we had done some breath work, some holotropic breathing, pranayama, and she could feel it kind of intensifying, like it wanted to release, but not really releasing. So during her training session, she had a very profound, like emotional release that also helped to release this pain that she was and dysfunction that she was having in her shoulder and arm. So of course I was curious. And it just so happened another friend of mine who was also an Ashtanga yoga teacher in London was in this same course with her. And so then I was like really curious, like, this is fascinating. I'm going to ask this other person about it too. So I reached out and asked her how she was enjoying the course, and she was also having these really like profound experiences and emotional releases and like healing trauma from that she was holding from her relationship with her family and different things. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I was curious. And I saw that this woman, Dr. Sarah Jane, was going to be in Toronto giving a training program in Canada. And of course, I live in Calgary, so it's a bit of a ways. It's a bit of a journey. You have to, stay somewhere and arrange all the travel and accommodations. And also it was in between my own trips where I was teaching workshops or retreats. So I only had kind of a less than a 3-week break. Maybe it was around 17 days or something that I was going to be back home. And it was this training program was right in the middle of it. And I thought, I can't
It
do
always
it.
works out.
Yeah.
And that's the same note. I live in the GTA, so next time you're down, please let's meet in real life and
That'd
we
be
can sit
good.
in my house.
But I just was like, I can't do it because it's like, when I'm away, I'm not with my son. When I come home, I like to be here with him. And I'm like, it feels like kind of weird to come home for 5 days, leave for 5 days, come back home for 5 days, and then leave again for 2 weeks. But anyway, I was doing a holotropic breathwork session myself, like not facilitating it, but practicing. And in this session, I had this kind of divine download, and it was this really clear message. And it felt like coming from this inner energy or this inner sort of guide saying, you have to go to this course. You have to apply. You have to go. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to just explore options. And they were totally full. And so I was like, okay, I was also just about to leave on another trip. So I was sitting in an airport and I got this message back that they were totally full. And I said, okay. So I wrote them back and said, no problem. I just know that I'm meant to learn from Sarah Jane. I got this really clear message. And so, at some point in the future, I'm sure I'll, connect with you. And just thought, okay, like that's I was totally unattached to whether it happened or didn't happen. And I got on the airplane, and when the plane landed, I had another email saying that there was this original week-long course was booked up, but the week before it was open if I wanted to go in Toronto. And so then I was like, okay, the universe made a spot for me. I better go. So it was just like all of these synchronistic events that really opened up and brought me into this space. And upon entering this space, it was incredible. It was just really transformational. Um, just seeing, Dr. Sarah Jane's quite profound in her ability to connect to the physical body,
Intuitive as well. You mentioned she's a
but the energetic
chiropractor.
body. Yeah, she would not say that she's an intuitive. She says she speaks body.
Okay.
But yeah, there's something going on there.
Well, if you're teaching a course on energetics, there's definitely something going on there.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, she's very attuned to people's energies. She's very attuned to what's happening on these different layers or levels of ourselves. So the way
Right.
spinal energetics works is we have our body, which we're all familiar with, and this is where sort of Western science focuses, right? But such an intense focus on the body sometimes without taking into account these other layers of ourselves or these other aspects that exist in our energy field, it can often just like deepen and ingrain some dysfunction. And so now we're like identified with having a problem, right? Because we're seeing ourselves in this limited way. And so the spinal energetics takes into account these other aspects of ourselves that exist in our energy body. So we have an emotional body, right? We have a mental body. We have a spiritual body, which is related to our communities and our how we're engaging with the world. And then we have a soul body or like a soul purpose. And so we have 5 layers, and these are really similar to yogic koshas, right? Where you have the pranamaya
Yeah.
kosha, the manomaya kosha, the vijnanamaya kosha, the anandamaya kosha, and the annamaya kosha. So the physical, the energy, and they would say the prana is its own body, then the mental, the higher intellect, and the body of bliss. So it's kind of similar to this idea. And also then you have a causal body and a subtle body and a physical body. So it's kind of blending these layers of uh, psychological, energetic, emotional, mental. All of these things have what connects them all is vibration, right? And so that's kind of at the heart, I think, of the methodology, which is we are all vibration. And so our physical body vibrates at a certain level, our emotional body's vibrating at a certain level, our mental body's vibrating at a certain level, spiritual and soul body. And as a facilitator of the work, it's really like a co-created space. So you're attuning with your client's body and the vibration that it's emitting. And the body's going to show you where it's holding patterns or where it's holding tensions or fixations, where there's spots that are kind of lacking energy, blind spots, spots that aren't getting a movement of prana in the body. And as you maybe do a subtle touch there or make a sound like blowing a candle or you can make different sounds and it connects with the client's prana, with their energy, their unconscious, and it's connecting that consciousness into areas of the body so that their own energy can heal from the inside out. So you're using their own capacity to heal themselves, you're activating it in a way so that
And you're
rather
actively
than
sound and touch.
yeah, primarily through sound and touch. And because it's just like as vibration affects,
Mhm.
one vibration
Yep.
affects another
Yep.
vibration. So,
Yeah. The
and
ripple
also
effect.
there's like the co-regulation happening as well as there's music involved too, because that's adding another layer of vibration. And often there's essential oils or scents as well, because that stimulates the olfactory nerve, which relates to memory, which can also help to heal trauma. So it's kind of combining all of these neural pathways to our nervous system, to our brain and our spine, because the spine is what's emitting all of the energetic signals to all the rest of our body
That's
and also
the
taking
tone.
in all of the stimulation from the rest of our body to our brain. So it's working with the central nervous system to integrate. Yeah.
I can't believe I haven't heard of this before. Is this new?
It's not super new. I would say, I mean, maybe Dr. Sarah Jane, her version of it is new-ish, but there's another doctor in Australia that has developed something called spinal flow, which is kind of very akin to the same work, the same energy work. I would say Dr. Sarah Jane's methodology and philosophy and the way she's integrated these practices is a little bit more taking from the Eastern philosophies and esoteric acupuncture, yogic meditative traditions, also trauma release, pranayama, kundalini activation process, shamanism, inner dance, and Reiki, all of these different modalities and kind of blending them because she's studied all of these different things and brought them
And I
into
guess
her
that
chiropractic work.
it
Yeah.
makes sense that you would gravitate towards this because of your love for all of those other modalities too. So it seems like a natural extension of the work and
Yeah.
your passion for the things that you were doing or are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much, I mean, it was like meeting a soul sister. It was like, "Oh, yeah. Wow, we've really kind of lived a similar path of learning and studying and, differences, of course, but definitely there's a lot of similarities there, with my own journey and the
Yeah.
depth that I've gone into, the Eastern traditions."
So this again, my mind is blown. I'm like, how did I not know about this? But thank you for sharing. This is so interesting, and I'm totally going to dive deeper into this after this call. But tell me more about like if I was interested in getting a session, like what would a typical session look like from the moment I walked in to see you? Like, what does that look like for somebody like me?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically a session would include, especially initial session
Right.
would include the initial. I mean, there's always an initial assessment. Um, we're gonna have a little chat and figure out sort of what's been going on for you at a physical, emotional, or personal level. If there's any personal history there that you want to
Do you need to
reveal.
have do you need to have an issue? Like what if it's just like, some people like go to Kairos for like just general maintenance. Like, could I come to you and just say, just a little tune up harmony? Like, would that work?
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And, like, once you're in the work, like, once you start to experience, I always think that, like, 4 or 5 sessions are good to have to kind of really go into it because it is kind of when you're receiving the work, when you're receiving, like when you're in the session, um, allowing yourself to kind of receive this integration or, like, opening up, you're moving into a state that's kind of in between awake and sleep. So kind of like a dream, like a
Like
lucid
yoga
dream
nidra, kind of.
state. Yeah, like a yoga nidra state.
Okay.
Exactly. Or like when you go to a sound bath, right? You're like kind of
Yeah.
in between dream and awake or sleeping and awake. You're kind
Mhm.
of lucid
Mhm.
dreaming. So you enter a very similar state like that, which you know, from like a scientific point of view, your brain waves are moving from alpha, maybe into a theta state or like dropping even down towards a delta state, but it's somewhere kind of in between those two brain waves. And there is when your unconscious can kind of really come out, right? That's why when we're dreaming, we dream in metaphors. It's our unconscious mind trying to like integrate memories, experiences, thoughts, feelings, emotions that we've had during our day or during our life. It comes up, right? From our unconscious mind or from our body or our emotional body, where we're storing this kind of feeling, vibration, thought, whatever it is, emotion starts to come and merge into our conscious mind. And then we see it in however we're going to see it, could be an image or a sound or a smell or an emotion or a release. And so as you kind of get the work done more and more and more, of course, we keep living our lives. And so we accumulate stress because that's just what life does to us, right? So definitely I like to go and just be like, okay, had a couple of weeks that have felt really full on, I really could use just like a treatment. Like, please. So it's definitely something that I love to do for just maintenance.
And so what comes up for you can change from session to session based, I guess, on your receptivity or like some one session, it could be maybe olfactory. I remember my very first Reiki session was I felt a lot of like hot and cold and different sensations throughout my body. But the second session I had, and this, was I heard messages like it was very olfactory, auditory, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah. So would it be similar that way? Like you just never know what you're going to get, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Do
It's
you
always
remember what you?
different.
Do you remember like when you're in it?
Yeah, like afterwards, it depends. I think it kind of depends on your level of awareness. Some people
Mhm.
kind of drop really into deep sort of unconscious state. Um, but it's still working because their body's still conscious and there is physical touch happening. So, once you kind of lay down, there's music, we do a physical assessment, a chiropractic assessment to see where the body is holding the tension. And then there's like gentle touches along the spine to see where the body is maybe lacking that energetic connection, right? So there'll be something that's almost like a knot or feels like a dead area in the body. So you're physically touching the body in a very gentle way just to kind of notice also how the body responds to the touch, because that's really important too, right? There's going to be a feeling also there, like an energetic kind of feeling or connection, kind of like a magnet or like a tingling. And because we're focused on the client as a practitioner, you might also feel in your own body things because again, we're communicating in that field of energy. So as our consciousness opens into that field of energy, we're receiving and knowing things, right? You're kind of like tapping into that intuitive space where you just like feel things or know things about someone because you're focusing so intently on the person at that
Mhm.
time. And then it's really about kind of bringing the awareness, helping them bring the awareness into their body through sound, through like helping them kind of move the energy themselves from energy rich areas where there's a lot of flow to energy deprived areas where there might be that block or that blind spot or that dead area. And the whole idea is that as the energy opens up in their body and flows with ease, then healing and health and life and releasing of trauma, releasing of emotion can happen. And then our physical bodies start to also feel better.
Can I ask the question? Um, so I feel like just based on like even the other kind of modalities that I am familiar with, when energy release is happening, right? Whether it's like an emotional response or whatnot. But
Yeah.
can you like again with when I do Reiki on people, um, sometimes they can some of my clients can feel the energy moving and other people can't. When you're doing spinal energetics, can they feel their energy going from energy rich to energy poor? Like, can they feel that transmission or that conduction of energy, or is it more of a subtle process?
I think it also depends on the client.
Okay, so
Uh,
basically, I just this thing.
it's similar to Reiki that way, I would say that it really depends on the client, but mostly I think as the consciousness connects to the body more, like as you integrate those layers together, definitely you notice, definitely you feel things like your body will move spontaneously.
Oh,
Yeah, and
so I've
there will
seen
be
that on your reels, and I
tremors
was
and
wondering what you were
shaking.
doing. Was that a
Yeah.
spinal energetics
Yeah.
session? Okay. Oh,
So
cool. It looked very
eventually, like,
Kundalini like.
yeah, it looks very similar to Kundalini. And you might like sometimes like the head starts shaking or the body starts shaking. People sometimes just feel like a tremor inside of them. Maybe their body's not moving at all, but they're feeling a tremor or like a energy current inside of them.
Wow.
So I would say most people feel something, even if it's just like, I felt really relaxed. Like they feel like they've changed state,
Mhm.
but it can be quite profound and it can be quite, um, yeah, dramatic also, depending on what's going on. And also, you're encouraged to, like, if you feel like you need to move, then you can move. Right? So maybe
Okay.
that's also a little bit different than Reiki, where you're a little bit more kind of passively receiving, or like a massage where you're just like passively receiving the work. Whereas here, it is an active process. So, if your body feels like it needs to move, that's also part of it. So that's maybe a bit more where like the yogic kind of practices come in, or also the trauma release, because as our body releases trauma, somatically, it releases through like shaking or stretching or tensing. And so it helps to kind of release and move the energy. And also, what can happen too is, as the body is sort of like, the body's trying to direct the energy to those areas, sometimes we're avoiding them, so sometimes we're moving
Right.
away from them because we don't want to have
Yeah.
that release. And so, as a practitioner, you can help to facilitate the movement of energy into that less awake area, and work with the client so that they start to experience and move into that flow rather than
Is
avoiding
this
it.
practice safe and suitable for everybody?
Yeah. I mean, if you've had like big T trauma, I
Yeah.
would
That's what I was
say,
just thinking about.
yeah, you need to first go and have that, looked after. So, it's not a replacement for psychotherapy. And
Compliment, though, perhaps.
complimentary for sure. Yeah, complimentary for sure. But also, if you are pregnant, um maybe not so much at the beginning or at the later stages, just because it is
Interesting.
dealing with your nervous system. Also, if you have very intense spinal injuries, or structural abnormalities in your spine or in your bones, like also older people, like over 75, little careful, because it is working with the spine as well, right? Or
Right.
also, if you have some like psychiatric conditions, or you've had a spiritual emergence that hasn't, um, you know, been integrated yet, or if you have untreated psychiatric issues, those would not be candidates for the work.
Okay. Where do we find practitioners? Like, like a
Yeah.
lot of these, like the chiros registered by college, massage therapists registered by college,
Yeah.
you know, spiritual practitioners, not so much, but,
Yes.
where would we find this? Like, I feel like this is a niche. It would it be a niche chiropractor, a niche energy healer, combination? Who would become a spinal energetics, um, practitioner, and where would we find one if we wanted to try this? Because I want to try this.
Yeah. There's some people in Toronto for sure. Um, so I would go to the spinalenergetics.com website,
Okay.
and there they have a practitioner directory, and you can find a practitioner right there on the website. You can look up by country and find someone
Cool.
near you. Yeah. And you can also do online sessions. It's funny because people have asked, like, I've done all online sessions, facilitated online sessions as well, and received online sessions. And there's something really, special about in person, because you get the physical touch, which is lovely and nice. But online sessions can be really strong also. It depends on sort of how they're facilitated, but you still have the music and the vibration. You still have the intention of the practitioner working on your body with consciousness and intention, kind of, more like Reiki at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's actually stronger from a distance in a way because
Well, I think that's how it goes with distance Reiki as well. And I do a lot
exactly.
of my Reiki sessions at a distance.
Yeah.
And I often get that same kind of, I guess you could say hesitation or objection from potential clients that are considering because they're like, "What? You're not with me? Like we're doing this online." I'm like, "Trust me, so much more powerful from a distance. I can feel your and like tap into that energy a lot stronger
Exactly.
for whatever reason."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
similar. Okay. I have a couple of other questions. So if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to, okay, so me, I'm interested, right? Curious.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I can do? Like, are there any aspects of spinal energetics that I can incorporate
I
into
mean,
my yeah.
I think like holotropic breath work is helpful. I think
Okay.
there's some similarities there because when you're doing the holotropic breath work, it gets you out of your um head and out of your frontal cortex, your thinking analytical
Where we
brain,
spend
and
all of our time.
exactly
Yeah.
drops you more into, your body, into the sensation, into a place of not, planning or problem solving, but just into
Okay.
that opening up into awareness. So I think that that's a really, I feel like it's a gateway into the spinal energetics, actually. I mean, that's how it worked for me. So maybe that's just my own bias. But when I work with clients online, we typically start with some breath work practices to help them drop into their body. And then it's just like tuning in to how the energy is moving into your body and responding to how your body's asking you to be with it in that moment. And
Okay,
so I
totally
think,
spontaneous, but can you lead us through something like that right now?
I mean, it,
Because I was putting you on the spot.
uh, I mean, it's better with music and it's better with like someone actually in front of you who's attuned into like who I can like tune into what's going on with them. Um, but yeah, I think if you're interested, like find a practitioner and get a session or get a session online because I think once you've had a session and once you've kind of felt into it and had someone be with you through the process, you could probably do it yourself. I don't know. I've never really like tried to do it myself, but I
That
guess you
I wanted
could.
to like say, I don't know, book with Harmony Slater.
Yes, you can come book an online session with me. I'd be happy to walk
Okay,
you
so
through it.
we'll make sure to include all that information in the episode description.
Yeah.
Then just Harmony, before we sign off, is there anything that you want us to take? Like if again, I learned about spinal energetics for the first time, I'm sure I'm not the only one. Is there anything that you want as like a take home message or a key point that you want to reinforce related to spinal energetics or anything really before as
Yeah.
our your parting words?
My parting words. I mean,
Words of wisdom.
I think it's just like a wonderful modality to help us integrate and connect more deeply to who we truly are. And I think sometimes we think our energy is just energy or like power. But breath is both like part of our energy and part of our body. And this prana is consciousness, right? And this
Mhm.
prana is consciousness in us as well as in all things with life all around us. And that this is a wonderful modality for helping to release trauma, emotional blockages, um, mental, too much thinking, difficulty sleeping. It helps to regulate our nervous system and restores the natural energy flow through the body, which can reduce fatigue, improve our feeling of balance or regulation in our lives, as well as just, I think, creating a really deep sense of well-being and inner connection. I think people really, once they are kind of in the work and getting regular sessions, it really helps with all kinds of things like changing habits. People maybe, not, it's not really recommended if you have an active addiction going on, but, maybe there's just like, you have a habit of like drinking too much wine on a Friday night or something. You're like, oh, this isn't serving me anymore, but it seems like it's just part of my lifestyle. Or maybe you're drinking one glass of wine every night. You're just like, I just want to let it go. But there's like a habit that you have of doing it, or some other habit that you think is, you want to change, the ice cream habit or something, right? Like we all have these little things in our life that feel like they're our go-to for stress relief or for regulation, nervous system regulation to help us relax or unwind or treat ourselves. And I feel like when we really are able to tap into this inner energy, and this is a modality that really gets you there, it shifts this relationship we have to ourselves, to our bodies, and then also to the people around us and to our environment. So it's this amazing way of really integrating and bringing these things into a harmonious balance, letting our emotions come up and to the surface and then really being with them in a very compassionate and loving way, just giving them space to come up and out. And it clears a lot of the stuff, I think, that especially I think a lot of us are holding on to like residual stress from COVID. I think collectively
Yeah,
as a
that is
society,
so
we're
true.
really kind of messed up. And so,
Yeah, no, it's very true. It comes up in my coaching calls all the time. Like whether people identify that or not, it's a pattern, and a lot of things kind of started at that point in time, or they may have already had taken root, but they really kind of took that opportunity. It's like a weed, right? It just kind of
yeah,
came up out of nowhere and like grew really quickly in a very short period of time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I have homework. I want to learn a little bit more about this, possibly sign up for a session. This all sounds really good. So you mentioned one thing. So would I need to do like say 4 or 5 sessions in order to see this, feel this shift, or would I see it or feel it with the first one? But I mean, I know it's probably individual to everybody too.
Yeah, I think it's really individual. I think you can feel a lot, like have a big shift with your first one for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I say give one a go, see the
Yeah.
results, and
I'd
then
love to.
yeah, get more
All right.
if you
Tell me
want.
the increment, Bria. Yeah. Right. I kind of wish it was in person for multiple reasons. One, that I've never met you, and I feel like we know each other so well by now. But thank you so much for being on the chat and sharing this gift of spinal energetics with us, this knowledge of a brand new modality. Like that's, well, brand new to me modality and possibly other listeners as well. Thank you. There's just knowledge is power, and this is such an exciting thing for me to sink my teeth into a little bit more. So thank you for being on the
Wonderful.
chat.
Thank you. Thank you so
We'll
much.
have
It's
you
my
on again
pleasure.
to maybe talk about something else, because I'm sure you're such a wealth of knowledge. There's more in there,
Thank
but this is all
you.
we were able to crack today.
Just in time, the dogs ran
Right.
in.
That was really cute. Oh my God. Okay. Bye, Harmony.
Thank
And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.